Welcome to the Corpse Club, the official podcast of DailyDead.com. I am one of your co-hosts, Derek Anderson, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by fellow co-hosts Bryan Christopher and Scott Drebit. Thank you for joining me for another round of frightful fun, guys.
Are we the Corpse Club now? The one and only. Love it.
Yes, the Fast and Furious and now the Corpse Club.
I, too, am thrilled to be here, elated. Even to be part of the Three Horsemen.
Yes, a little backstory there. I was trying to come up with nicknames for this special trio of recorders, as we like to do before recording. And some reason, I thought we were well, we do now. For some reason, I was thinking instead of Four Horsemen of Apocalypse, I decided Three Horsemen should be our name. And it's kind of like I guess it's the straight to DVD version of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Well, you could have come up with the Three Ninjas, the Three Amigos, the Three Caballeros, just to cover movies right off the bat.
Also, I want to hear from the Corpse Club audience. How sick are you all of us just coming out of the gate with inside jokes that we then have to explain from something we talked about for 20 minutes before the episode started? Let's hear from you, audience. What say you?
Why don't we apologize?
Why don't we actually record those episodes or that content, right? Maybe this is future bonus content that we can have for our viewers. But until then, for this episode, it's that time of year. It's already almost the end of 2021. Maybe it felt like a month. Maybe it felt like 10 years. Your mileage may vary, but yes. It's that yes to both. It's that time of year where we're all catching up on movies, TV shows, everything horror and sci-fi related. And it feels like, especially compared to 2020, it feels like this year there was twice as much content that came out and so much more to try and keep up with. And so, as we like to do on this episode, we're going to talk about some of our favorite recent viewings, things we're excited about, things that we've enjoyed recently. And as we come to these final few weeks of the year, because we have our favorites list right around the corner, and I feel like I still need to do a lot of homework.
Yeah. So, we should really call it what it is. This is like about the eighth, recent catch-up episodes of the year. They're bullshit episodes. But they're some of our favorites. There's some of our favorites because we just like to get together and talk about movies without any kind of overriding arching theme. So we're just going to spit out some stuff we've seen, and please let us know if you guys have seen it, if you think what we think is right or wrong, and then let us know.
We should start. Right? We should have titled these like Halloween Catch Up Part 1, 2, 3, 4,
yes.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yes, because then we'd actually be to like the Jason Takes Manhattan stage or the Resurrection Halloween stage, and yeah, it would be a beautiful thing. But here we are, and we're just remaking the episode theme over and over. But we have a really fun time doing it. So, Bryan, why don't you start us off? Because I know that you've actually watched some stuff recently that we can talk about. So, what's going on in your world?
So I actually get to check off a movie off of my to-do list. It was actually the only movie, because I did a movie and a TV show that I put on my to-do list. I knocked off the movie, which was Prano Bailey Bond's Censor.
Okay.
So, we talked about this a few weeks ago in terms of introducing it. It is about a British Board of Film Classification censor from the mid 80s during the time of the video nasty controversy. So we're talking, I guess kind of coinciding with Satanic Panic that we were having here in the US. But a lot of horror movies were getting utterly either gutted by the censors or they were just being outright banned. And this movie kind of takes place within that frame, and it it features or follows one of the censors working for that board. But there's definitely something going on. Her name is Enid, and she's very, very gung-ho about making sure like she really believes in what she's doing. She is protecting people kind of from the evils of the you know the over the top video nasty. And you get these little hints that kind of her gung ho attitude about this might be tied to something from her childhood. You get these little breadcrumbs about how very early on, this isn't really a spoiler, but you find out her sister has been missing since she was a little kid. By the time we get into the story, she's being, her parents are saying they want to declare her legally dead to kind of just, move on with their lives. And at one point, Enid, she's kind of going through a movie to Censor that rings a few bells in the back of her mind, seems very very familiar in ways that I don't want to get too in the weeds on or give too many spoilers about, but it's a funky little movie. People I think have been talking about how it has some giallo elements to it, which I think I would agree with. I've recently really enjoyed kind of giallo adjacent movies. I'm not a huge fan of giallos themselves, but I like when people do interesting twists with them. The funny thing about this one is I think this is probably the one that's closest to a giallo that I've seen in a while, or at least kind of the what would you call like
aesthetic,
the not quite giallos of like Suspiria. So like, Argento not quite doing giallo, but in that same realm. And it gets closest to that in a way that actually I liked more the ideas of what they were playing with than necessarily the movie itself. I liked it. I just didn't quite love it.
Yes, I'm really
seen this yet?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm really looking forward to it though, because I'm a huge fan of the entire video nasty era.
Mm-hmm.
Especially it's absolutely fascinating, and I'm always looking to do to seek out more information about it. But yeah, essentially, the video nasties was such a remarkable point in history that I think if it happened later on when the world was certainly much smaller, I don't think it wouldn't happen in this day and age. But just to think of it happening and seeing it play out, I knew I had friends from Britain who, would go through this very problem of looking for these kinds of movies. And having to find them on the black market if you want to find anything closely resembling, unedited. So does this movie feature a lot of that world? Is it itself, or is it more of like kind of like a backdrop?
It's more of, so the world of people trying to find these movies is more of a backdrop. So it's not like an 8mm where it kind of dives into that underworld of there's definitely some scenes with that, like you'll see a scene where she's in a video store and there's kind of those clandestine exchanges of movies going on, that kind of thing. But this is really more from the framing of this is from the Censor's side of it, which I think is really interesting because it does explore a lot about kind of the subjectivity and who are the people behind the curtain who are making these decisions about what is appropriate and not appropriate for us. And it's also again, I really liked a lot of the themes and the ideas in it, because it's one of those things where it doesn't necessarily pick a side, but it just kind of shows how many different facets there are to this discussion, and doing it through the lens of just this one person. So you see her navigating the British Film Board film classification bureaucracy, the media frenzy of the time. That's a big part of it. You also kind of get to see the seedy world of the people who are making these movies. So there's a lot of different elements to it. And I think it's a kind of a very nuanced or as nuanced as a movie that's kind of modeled off of Giallo can be, it's taking a very measured and balanced approach when talking about this stuff. I think for me there was it was almost a little too sterile for me. Like I think I would have liked to have seen it be a little messier, and gotten more into kind of like the video nasty aesthetic. But I will say I think it really sticks the landing at the end, just in terms of the way it plays out, the visual aesthetic, kind of the meaning behind what we're seeing. I really did like the ending a lot, so that brought it up quite a bit for me. I think I would have just liked to have seen it be a little bit more down and dirty in the rest of the movie.
Interesting. Yeah, I really want to see this one. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but it's so fascinating because now you look at those movies from that era, and being like part of the video nasties club is almost a badge of honor now that we're on the other side of it. But at the time, it was such a thing that kind of prevented, or I guess also brought publicity to the movie, but then also prevented some people from seeing it, but then made other people want to seek it out. So just to like dive into that world, I think is such a great basis for a horror movie, and kind of almost like a meta spin on Giallo that we haven't really seen before. So this is definitely, it's not on my to-do list that we made a couple of episodes ago on Corpse Club, but I really want to sneak it in before the new year as well.
And I would definitely recommend it. Like I said, it wasn't quite what I was hoping for, but that's also, I think it just suffered from mismanaged expectations on my part, because I am so into some of the previous movies that have played with the Giallo. So Knife and Heart, The Editor, I've really, really liked those. And so this was doing something a little different, and it didn't quite connect with what I had in mind going into it. So it might be also one of those ones where I should probably give it another watch without those expectations involved. But all that said, I think that's definitely one people should check out.
Awesome. Yes, that is definitely one I'm going to put in my to-do list. It just gets longer and longer, but a good one to have on the radar. And I know also there's some good content on that movie on Daily Dead. If you want to go check that out, I believe Heather Wixon interviewed the director and covered that movie during its festival run. So definitely dive into the movie after you've seen it a little bit more. Maybe let's go around the circle of the three horsemen here, and let's go over to Scott. Scott,
what are we? Is it to me already?
I think we'll take turns, and it'll wow, then you can't take as long of a nap as you usually do.
You're the third side of the square for the three horsemen.
I'm the third side of the rectangle. Okay. Let me start with. Okay. I recently watched a film, and I believe it's a 2020, but who cares anymore? Hunter with Devon Sawa, which is basically the story of a family of three, a father, that's our Devon Sawa, his wife, and their teenage daughter, and they live deep in the woods. They have for years. They just decided to go off the grid. They're having some trouble with a very bad wolf. So while they're dealing with this trouble with the wolf, the father decides to go hunting the wolf. And at that time, he discovers some female bodies in the woods tied up to trees, not done by a wolf, let's say. So they have a two-pronged situation. There's a serial killer on the loose, and they also have this killer wolf to deal with. Up until the final act of the movie, it's a very suspenseful, well-acted thriller, kind of a man against nature, if you will. And then when it comes to the ending, whatever you have that's pulled up, whether it be pants, your jaw, anything like that, will immediately fall as the events unfold at the ending of this movie. This isn't a movie that sticks the landing. This is a movie that drills the landing through the concrete. About 18 miles underground. It's a very
that's good.
Yeah, it's a very impactful ending. It's a very impactful ending that does play into the themes of the movie perfectly, but in a very visceral way that the rest of the movie doesn't. Yet it feels very much a part of the movie. So that's and my apologies. I'm not sure of the writer or director or the other co-stars, but all of the technical credits are
or
great.
Whether or not you actually saw the movie. Or...
No, I did see the movie. But the technical credits are great. The performances are really good. The dialogue's good. The action is good. And yeah, like I said, and the ending will stay with you. Yeah, quite some time, I have a feeling.
So then I guess credit goes to director and screenwriter Sean Linden.
Thank you, Sean Linden.
I'm also interested in seeing this because it looks to be the return of Nick Stahl, who...
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
And I kind of want to see his comeback because I liked him kind of as a child actor. He kind of keeps coming in and out. And I know he's had some kind of public, what do you want to say, struggles with drugs and alcohol. But from what I've heard, he's come out the other side of it. So, maybe this is going to kick off a little bit of a Stahl-essence, something along those lines.
Why not? He's very good in it. As is Salwa. Salwa is another. Well, I mean, not he same age, around the same age as me, but he was a young, child actor, and he came through that, and he had some rough patches as well, and has been back on what we would want the Stahl-essence to be for quite some years now. He's got Chucky and movies in theaters, and this one is just it's a really good movie. I still have to say the ending is so strong though that I have to tell people beforehand that just listen. It has a very strong ending that you do not see coming.
That is what I heard about too. Like when I think it came out late last year, and I remember people that saw it were tweeting about it, and everyone who saw it was tweeting about like that scene. And it's one of those movies where I just want to see it based on that alone. But then the cast too is terrific, and it sounds like a really interesting story. So it is definitely one that now I'm going to have to check out as well. So add into that horror homework that just keeps piling up.
If it was on Tubi, it would be hovering between the thriller and the horror categories until that ending, in which case it firmly sits in the horror section.
And I will ask, and I don't know if this is going to turn it into any kind of a spoiler, but is it like strong ending that you have to brace yourself for? Like it'll be like, oh man, that was gnarly, or it would be like, oh man, I need a bath and a hug. A little bit of both, maybe.
Yeah, because I got to be careful how I tread here. There is a point to it, and it does offer catharsis.
Gotcha.
For a character. So viewing it through that lens, I didn't feel horrible after it.
Okay. So you just might have to watch like the Flintstones or Simpsons afterwards, like an episode just to like cleanse yourself a little bit.
It couldn't hurt, but it's not, like I said, for 90% of the movie, it's just this very efficient suspense thriller, right? That you would gladly watch, on a Sunday afternoon. And then and then it says, "Oh no, we have a couple other cards that we'd like to show you." You know.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Okay. Yeah, that is one.
And you may see where it's going or you may not. But either way, it's very well done.
I feel like this is turning into the year of like the third act pivot with, Hunter x Hunter and Malignant.
Oh yeah.
And I guess you could say I'm sure Old has one too, since that's kind of his thing. Yeah, would you say the pivot is as hard as Malignant, where it's like, oh, this turned into something else entirely?
No, it's not a film that once this card is flipped over, it changes how you see the rest of the film.
Gotcha.
There's nothing. There's nothing that grandly Machiavellian about it, right? Not to say it isn't clever or well done, but that's not part of the attention. The ending is merely a very visceral response to the preceding events.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it's not kind of secretly a Venom movie.
It is not, but I turned it off before the credits were finished. So
we don't know if Annabelle showed up and they're doing the whole cinematic universe.
I can't say for sure. But that's the first one that's popping in my head.
Well, excellent choice, Scott. I know it. I think it's weird because these last 2 years feel like one mega year, kind of rolled into one. So I feel like it came out late last year, but it might as well be this year. It might as well be a year in the future. At this point, I think we're all just in one continuous year. So I guess it's my turn. It's the third horseman of the apocalypse's turn to
you're the first. I'm the third. You're the first.
Oh, okay. So you sent me out there.
So that makes me number two.
You went first, didn't you? Derek, wasn't you have the first recommendation?
Well, I just introduced the recommendations. I didn't actually share one.
My apologies then. Then you are the third. Then you are the third. You are the third pud of the apocalypse.
Of our low budget apocalypse.
Yeah.
So that would be Scott number two.
Yes, I'm number two, Brian.
That's a poop joke if you're playing toilet joke bingo, Corpse Club edition at home.
You have to explain a poop joke.
I know you just love it when I host, don't you, Scott?
It's just kind of insulting to our listeners that you would have to explain a poop joke.
I'm merely trying to include those that are playing the bingo game, Scott.
In all fairness, most of our content is insulting to our listeners.
That's a good point.
Just don't put that on the poster.
We have a poster?
Yeah, podcast poster. Gonna put it on telephone poles. It's the new way of advertising. You'll see.
It's our cutting edge marketing. We're a mix of old and new here at Corpse Club.
Marketing is cyclical, man. It's cyclical.
Scott, did you get those flyers out? Yeah, I got all 10,000 of them out. See, walking the streets of Calgary with a staple gun.
I'm just picturing one telephone pole that has 10,000 flyers coming off of it.
It's the biggest dog walking route in town. And then all of a sudden we find out, hey, our numbers went way up in Calgary.
So
like, can you check the Calgary market of Corpse Club?
Well, while we look into that, I will share my recommendation
my niece is a member and she lives in Calgary. So I guess that's one for sure. Well,
and yourself, I think you could include yourself there because
I don't think I should. Isn't there a slight conflict of interest? I mean,
I don't think there's any shame in that.
Download, my man.
To be honest, I don't listen to us. So
Oh, you're like one of those actors who doesn't watch a movie that he's in. You just
Oh God, no, I'm like Red Fisher on SCTV. It's like, God, I'd love to catch the fish. Oh, I can't stand the taste of them. Love to catch them. That's me.
Scott Drebit, Adam Driver of the podcast world.
Oh yes.
I don't even know what that means, but
He doesn't like to watch his own work, like almost to a neurosis. Like it makes him very uncomfortable to watch.
Oh no,
himself.
don't get me wrong. I love the sound of my own voice, but
it's when we keep butting in with our grating voices that you're just like, pass.
Just need more me.
Yeah, stay tuned for our next bonus episode, which is going to be Scott talking to himself for 45 minutes.
Me. Okay,
in his sleep.
Derek, what have you watched that the socks flew off?
Oh,
the shoes flew off. The shirt flew off. I don't know what else flew off. What just blew your knickers off?
Well, hold on to your butts because my recommendation or my recent viewing is none other than Riverdale season 6, which kicked off recently on the CW, which I know.
I had no idea you were a fan.
Oh, well, I mean, I've tried to contain myself all this way, but I figured this is the episode I'm going to reveal that I am I don't even know what you would call a Riverdalian or something like that. I kind of like the sound of that. So, but here's the interesting thing though, this season, so they have within the season, like a 5-episode, as the kids call it, event series or limited series. And it's event television. So this event is called Riverdale with a V. And it's like this alternate version of Riverdale, kind of like an alternate universe, but it's still picking up where season 5 left off, but it's like everything is a lot more supernatural, and there's characters that you wouldn't think would die are dying, and it's introduced by Jughead as this like Rod Serling Twilight Zone character within the show. So it's like they reinvented the show for these 5 episodes, and this also includes a tie-in with Sabrina the Teenage Witch from the Netflix series. So they've got her to cross over for an episode, and it's really interesting because I really didn't think I could see any more curveballs coming on this show like what we've seen so far. But then they went and just basically blew the entire show up and then reformatted it in a different way. And my theory, I do have a theory. I think this is all like a coma that Archie's in, because there was like this explosion. And spoiler warning if you're not caught up on Riverdale or you're planning on catching up one day. But I have a theory that this is all like a dream that Archie's having, and he's going to wake up in the hospital, and that all of this stuff that happened may or may not be real.
So what? They're just cribbing narrative points from Archer at this point?
I mean, a little Archer, a little Dallas. I mean, why a pinch of this, a pinch of that? I mean,
God, this is such a weird show. Like it's getting so weird that I'm almost having to check it out now, because I'm like, because they're talking about like, yeah, they're really going into the horror elements this year. I'm like, didn't they do like a snuff film season once? Like, I think this is already pretty much a horror show.
Yeah. And the creator Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, he's a huge horror fan, and I feel like he just infuses the entire show with horror. Some episodes are more drama, some are more musical, some are more just a little bit of more soap opera type stuff, but it's always entertaining. I mean, and someone usually dies every few episodes, so I mean, there's always something going on in Riverdale, and I think you two would both like it. It's very it's like reading like a pulp novel. It's very entertaining. This season especially.
When Riverdale first came on, I remember watching the first episode, and I think as soon as Archie took his shirt off and you saw those glistening ginger abs, I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is the Archie that I'm looking for, really. So I just never invested my time in it, as it were. So that's all I got about that. But from what you're describing, it sounds absolutely horrible. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
But in a good way, right, Scott?
Absolutely. Sure.
I can't see if you're nodding yes or no while you say that, but I'm assuming you are in full agreement with me on that. So, well, it's coming up on the 100th episode. So, I mean, if you ever find yourself with a few open weekends and you want to just binge something, 100 episodes of Riverdale just waiting for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I'll put a pin in that.
And I'll throw in if you are a Riverdale fan and you're like, man, I really like Derek Anderson talking about this, but I need something that's just devoted to Riverdale. Valeska Griffiths from Anatomy of a Scream and from Grimm Magazine actually is a co-host of the Milkshakes and Mimosas podcast, which I'm guessing Milkshakes and Mimosas might have something to do with Riverdale. I haven't the slightest clue.
There is a lot of drinking that goes on.
Derek's killing himself laughing. Derek's like, best inside joke ever.
But yeah, Milkshakes and Mimosas is a podcast devoted to the universe of Riverdale. So I'm looking at their Twitter feed, and I think they're going to be coming back soon now that season 6 has started up again.
Yeah. You know what? I'm sure it's fine and it's lovely, but at this point, they're six deep now.
Yes.
There's so much stuff right now that I'm trying to catch up on,
Yeah, it's getting to that supernatural territory where it's been on, and it almost feels like, it's getting to that point where you might hear, well, watch this amount of the seasons, and then you're but there's so many seasons.
I have season 1 of Supernatural on DVD.
Oh, there you go.
I thought I'm going to make this journey 15 years ago.
Oh man,
I still have season 1. Supernatural. I've watched 2 episodes.
Is it still in the packaging?
1. No, I cracked it and watched the first 3 episodes, but I thought it was going to be like me and the missus I thought it was going to be a couple thing to watch together. It seemed to me that kind of show, but she was like, nah, she kind of bailed on it. So I just kind of bailed too, which I don't know. I'm sure it's right up my alley, but there's just, as we've said a million times, so much out there.
Content.
Yeah. And we're creating more content on this episode by going back to, I don't know which horseman you are anymore. I can't keep track, but Bryan, we're back to you. What's
number 1?
Numero uno.
Numero
uno. What's something you'd like to talk about that you either experienced recently or you're excited about?
Yeah, Bryan, share with us. Won't you share with us?
Oh, shucks. Geez. So yeah, this one is, and actually, if you're listening to this on the day that this episode is releasing, then you are also just in time for the kickoff to the Axe Wound Film Festival. This is the first time they're doing this virtually. It's a festival in Vermont. They had to, because of COVID, they decided to scrap last year, but this year they're coming on a virtual platform, and this is devoted to women filmmakers, and it's going to be a week-long film festival. You can do it like each night. There's going to be some short film blocks. It's primarily short films. So starting with Friday, December 10th, going through all the way to Sunday, December 19th. They've got programming throughout the week. So they'll each night be doing various short film blocks, along with like Q&A with the filmmakers, things like that. And then there's also some various content that you can get. So if you get, it's called the Slumber Party Pass. I'm sorry. If you get that, you get all the week's worth of content and some of the different kind of bonus features that they have. So there's going to be a lecture on horror media studies with Danny Bethea dissecting the genre with intention. It's Always Halloween, a live episode with Luce Tomlin Brenner, and then Kim and Ket Stay Alive, maybe the Axe Wound edition. That's actually that's a podcast that it's a lot of fun. Basically, two people, one of them will watch a horror movie, the other one will not have seen it, and they will basically take them through the plot points of the movie and ask them what decisions they would make to see if they would actually survive to the end of that movie. Most of the time they don't, but it's still a lot of fun, and it's funny stuff. So yeah, a week long of horror content devoted to women filmmakers. I'm very excited to be able to see this. I haven't gotten to see it in years past, just because I haven't been able to get up to Vermont. It's even farther away now, but with the virtual schedule, it's one of those things that we keep coming back to, where of all the crappy things that have been going on with the pandemic, the one good thing is that it has opened up our access to a lot of these different festivals now that they've gone virtual. If Axe Wound sounds familiar, it's actually run by Hannah Neurotica, who used to run a horror zine, I believe it was called Axe Wound. So it's all of this is very much that DIY, make it however you can make it kind of thing. So there promises to be some really interesting stuff in here. I'm really looking forward to it.
Nice. That's really cool. And I love the fact that there's a festival like this in Vermont. Like, if I ever do get the chance to go, that's really awesome that there's like something like this going on up there. And then the fact that you can tune in from anywhere in the world essentially and support female filmmakers and all these up and coming talented artists. That's a win-win. So that's really cool, and I'm glad you put that on my radar, especially this time of year, because I feel like this is kind of a open time slot when it comes to film festivals. I feel like other times of year it feels like it's just one after the other, but it's kind of cool to have one like in the holiday season in December, because I can't really think of that many that do this time of year. So it feels like a good slot for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't really get a lot of like, this isn't holiday themed, but it's interesting. I think you don't really get a lot of like holiday themed horror fests.
Right.
I know the impulse, clearly is to do something around October, but you get stuff throughout the year. You usually don't get much that's like, this is specifically like, Christmas themed. I guess maybe that's because it kind of narrows the focus of the films that you would expect to see in it. But and I will say, this is, it's not going to be a bunch of Christmas movies. It's all over the place in terms of the types of stuff.
Which again too is also refreshing, because we're so like flooded with Christmas movies this time of year that it's kind of nice to put something in between the 20th. I'm sure we're all rewatching Jingle All the Way and A Christmas Story nonstop all month. So it's good to, throw this in every once in a while, throw in something different. So that's awesome, man. Thanks for bringing that to our viewers' attention. And I'm assuming they can go online and look up Axe Wound Film Festival and learn all the
Yep.
gory details.
Yep, axewoundfilmfestival.com. You can see a list of all the films that are coming up. You can see the schedule, and you can get your tickets there, and you can do it based off of, if there's a specific, live evening you want to do of it. You can get you can kind of do it per night at like $20 a piece, or you can just kind of get the whole kit and caboodle and get access to everything for $100 for the week, which is, I will say, that the step I took. If you can, if you can afford it, I would definitely recommend it, because I think this is going to be pretty cool.
Awesome. And also a great way to support independent filmmaking. So good to put that on our radar for the holiday season. And, if you got any early holiday parties, you could surprise someone with a gift. Be like, hey, guess what? You're watching the Axe Wound Film Festival next week. But and Scott,
yes,
speaking
sir.
of the gifts of the season, do you have another gift of recent viewing experience to share with our listeners?
Not a viewing per se, but a great gift idea.
Ooh.
Okay, by the time this hits the airwaves, the book will be finished. Okay, it's practically done. I'm currently reading The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And it's the first novel of his that I've read, an Indigenous author, a prodigious author. Derek, think about writing a book right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just go ahead. Think about writing a book right now.
I'm getting a headache.
Are you? Okay. He just wrote and published 3 right there.
Oh,
I'm
dead.
Yeah. No, he's a beautiful writer and very straightforward and smooth and not overly detailed. You just learn enough about each person to propel the story, and yet they seem well-rounded. And the story itself, for those who aren't aware, is about 4 Indigenous teenage boys who kill a deer out of season, and to top it off on the property of one of the elders of their particular tribe. This being a big no-no. 10 years go by, and one by one, those teenage boys who are now grown men, married, etc., have to deal with the spirit of the elk that they killed, that has come back for vengeance, essentially. It's super fast-paced, creative. It's wonderful. I can hardly wait to read some more of his works. I think he's just a fantastic author, and how wonderful it is to see a novel where all of the characters are Indigenous, and for it to catch on with the public, I think is very encouraging too.
Talk about a book that ramps things up to 11. Like it starts off, similar to how we were talking about Hunter x Hunter, in terms of starting off as this kind of quiet, contemplative, dread-filled, like it's clearly, it seems like it's slowly building to something until it very quickly builds to something.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't want to say when it happens, but it's so well done. It's one of those scenes that takes you by surprise. I don't know if you had this reaction to it, Scott, but when I got to a certain page, I actually had to go back a few pages because I'm like, wait, did I miss something? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in like how blindsided you are with the turn this book takes.
Yeah. There's a few moments. I've had a few moments like that so far, and I still have, like I said, a little ways to go.
But the best part of it is that, like, that doesn't even, like, you think it's like, oh man, that was brilliant. If nothing else comes to this book, but then it just keeps going and keeps finding ways to grab your attention and keep you just absolutely enthralled in this book's spell. It's such a great book. I know I'm certainly not the only person who's been saying it. Scott's been saying it, and in the year or so leading up, people have been talking about how great this book is, and they're all right. It is amazingly done. It's amazingly well crafted, and Scott, you're kind of right on the money when it comes to, this is a book, it is almost exclusively Indigenous characters. I think there's like a little bit in the beginning where there's some kind of white shit kicker characters who are being white shit kickers, as they do.
Well, and don't forget the wife of Lewis is white. Yeah.
But it's, we have that conversation, or that not we, but there's been a lot of conversation about when you have movies or content, or books, music, not necessarily music, but the theme or the narrative trope that is often used is kind of how they are oppressed by white supremacy, which is 100% an issue, which is 100% something that needs to be looked at. But it's also something where it's like, it's nice to see books like this, that's even a horror book, where people get to be something beyond, a reflection of how we're oppressing everybody. It takes us out of it. It doesn't take out in a way where it's not acknowledging that white supremacy exists. Like, there's that kind of undercurrent in it, but this is a story about these characters and within the world of these characters. And, it's, you get to live in this kind of horrific world that's not kind of tainted by interactions with white America, other than kind of the small instances where we've already discussed. I don't know if this is making sense, but Scott, you get what I'm saying, right? It's about these characters. It's not about
100%. That is there, and that is the backdrop of the story. But the story itself is about 4 young men who make a bad decision, and it's a Stephen King story. They make a bad decision, and it comes back and bites them in the ass. But the evil, as it were, that they're facing is from within, as you said, Brian, from within their own world, right? It's not, it isn't the white man who is putting this evil down upon them. That's, thank you very much. That's where they live and everything else like that. But their conflict is essentially between the modern world, the modern indigenous person, and their ancient beliefs. And it essentially comes down to, don't put your hand in the dark cellar. Mm-hmm. It's a morality tale. It's all of that, but it's so well told, and the details are almost throwaway, so that you get a real feel for the characters just as you're reading along. And then he'll throw off a line of beautiful prose where you just kind of take your breath away and go, oh yeah, right. This guy's the good stuff. I can hardly wait to first of all, finish this, and then get into next before and after. He's got about, I think before this, he has about a dozen. And right now on the stands, besides this, he has My Heart is Like a Chainsaw, correct? Or My Heart is a Chainsaw.
Yeah. Right. I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Yeah. So there you go. Mr. Scott comes up with a bookie wookie.
Well, here's something I'm wondering. Have we found ourselves in a situation where we've both read a book and Derek hasn't read it?
Never, ever.
Now you're putting me on the spot, because I own this book, but I have not read it. And I bought it after, I know we were talking this summer, and
hold on.
Gosh.
Moment savored. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, my soul is disintegrating. I was supposed to be the bookworm. How could this happen? I'm like, all the bookworm is inside me is dying right now. But I at the very least, I do have this book. I've been looking forward to reading it for a long time. And I also need to put Stephen Graham Jones on the top of my holiday wish list, because like you mentioned, he has got to be one of the top people working in horror right now with My Heart is a Chainsaw. And he has another one called Night of the Mannequins that I've been wanting to read for a while. And then I believe there's a sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw that will be coming out in the future. So he is absolutely on a roll. And I'm super excited to dive into his work, especially because now you guys are making me play catch up. So now you put me on the spot.
Derek, I'm very happy that you have all these books that you want to read, but we were talking about the books that we have read.
Or almost read. Yeah.
I'm giving it to you, Scott.
Okay.
Yeah. See, wait, it's not enough to just have them pile up higher and higher and be like, oh, I'll be like the Twilight Zone character where there's not time now, but there will be one day.
Hey, maybe that's how they do things in Minnesota, but Scott and I have higher standards. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, way higher here in Calgary. Yeah.
Well, now I have to keep up with the Corpse Club book club, so I will.
You can no longer be part of the Three Horsemen. You have to go and join the Two Amigos or the Two Musketeers.
That's going to leave you guys as what? The Two Horsemen?
A Corpse Club book club. That's a great idea. We could call it the Corpse Club. I love this. This is good. This is good.
Hey,
we'll get shirts and everything.
You can become
if it works, it works.
Cards.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound familiar at all.
We'll call them
glad
bookmarks.
We're recording this. Yeah, we'll call them bookmarks. I'm glad we're recording this. This is good.
Except the bookworm is like an evil worm that
it's a tapeworm.
Soul.
You totally have a tapeworm, Dick.
Nice.
I was meaning to tell you.
Okay,
that's
Derek,
what that is.
So I had a book as my choice. What is your next choice?
Oh, well, I'm going back to the realm of TV because I'm a TV worm, I guess, not a bookworm right now. I'm a TV worm, and it's funny. We were talking about the Nick Stalassance, which I'm sure is already trending on Twitter, and he was actually on the show I want to bring up recently, Fear the Walking Dead, which is one of the spinoffs of AMC's The Walking Dead. And it's currently airing its 7th season, which I can't believe it's already been on that long because it feels like it just started. But
I really don't think those shows are a focus for our website. Do you?
Well, I know I'm getting a little off topic, but I figured the diehard readers and listeners they should be okay with it because Jonathan. I know our bread and butter is the Hallmark Channel, but I'm trying to mix it up just a little bit. So
Jonathan, he's just trying to appease Jonathan. Okay. Go do your little Fear the Walking Dead spiel. Let's go.
Well, so in season 6, there was a doomsday cult that decided the only natural thing to do at this point in the apocalypse was to unleash this nuclear warhead that they found on a submarine. And Nick Stahl played kind of the right hand man of this doomsday cult in season 6. And now, so the spoiler alert if you're wanting to catch up on that, but the bomb went off at the end of season 6, and now in season 7, it's kind of like Fallout, where it's a nuclear wasteland. It's like the immediate aftermath of a nuclear bomb going off. So I guess it's not quite like Fallout, but it's a more immediate version of Fallout. And so basically we're catching up with all the characters. There's like Keith Carradine. He's playing a character on here right now, and he's been holed up in a underground bunker. We've got characters that are starting civilizations in a skyscraper, and then we have like Morgan from The Walking Dead who's living in a submarine. And so they're all kind of trying to find their way, but now when they go outside, they have to get in this heavy duty radioactive gear. And so it's a kind of like a post-apocalyptic Western kind of vibe to it. But it's been kind of bonkers in the best possible way recently. There was an episode where a group wanted to get into a skyscraper that the character Strand has, where he's like rebuilding civilization, and he wouldn't let them in. So their response to that, which just totally made my entire year, was to take zombies or walkers, as they're I guess commonly referred to on the show. Or everyone kind of has a different name for them, but they take these zombies and they put like dynamite or bombs in their stomachs, sew them back up, put them on a man-made catapult, and then shoot them through the air into the skyscraper, so that every once in a while you see a zombie just flying through the air, and then it goes into the building and explodes. And then they're like, you have 1 hour to meet our demands, or we'll send more zombies in by catapult. So that was my kind of giddy moment when I was watching the show this year.
So I have a question. I want to go on back to the nuclear bomb exploding.
Oh, sure.
So at this point, Fear the Walking Dead, they did like a time jump, so they've caught up with the timeline of the original series, right? Of Walking Dead. Like it's around.
Yeah, I think it's not known entirely, but I feel like The Walking Dead might be a little bit ahead because there was a time jump on that show as well. So, but I feel like it's relatively in the same ballpark.
I guess my question is, and I haven't seen The Walking Dead since, one of the earlier seasons. Is there an episode or anything where everybody has to stop and look out west and go, hey, everybody, look at the big fucking mushroom cloud that's coming up out of the western part of the country? I think a nuclear bomb just went off.
No, we didn't get that glorious moment, but I can only imagine that it happened sometime off screen and
happened during the time jump.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Hold on, Brian. I'm sorry. Is that your jump the shark moment on The Walking Dead?
Well, funny
like that's finally where you're like, that's it. No, I'm good.
Funny you should mention that, because Rick did recently put on a leather jacket, and then he went over on jet skis and went over a pit of zombies.
That's a lie, because Rick's not on there anymore. He literally helicoptered out of the show.
You do watch?
No, I saw that on Entertainment Tonight. This is the mystery to me. I don't understand. I don't see, and I'm not disparaging the show. I just tuned out like season 4. I'm like, I'm good. Good luck, fellas. Just, you know what I'm saying without even saying it. I tuned out season 4. This is what I want to know. I don't hear any talk about The Walking Dead. I don't hear any talk about Fear the Walking Dead yet. The Walking Dead is what, in season 14 or something like that?
Season 11.
Season 11, and they're doing, and Fear the Walking Dead is season 7. But who's watching this is what I want to know. Obviously millions still are, but do you hear anyone talk about them? It's just weird. To me, it's strange. That's all. It's just a strange phenomenon.
I wonder if it's one of those shows that has like, because we admittedly kind of live in a bubble when it comes to like horror social media. A lot of the people who are really into the genre, really into kind of like what's the next thing. I wonder if The Walking Dead is one of those shows that it got so big because it transcended and kind of landed in the mainstream, and maybe it's still,
so it's like Grey's Anatomy.
It's alive in those mainstream circles where
it's more like Grey's Anatomy.
Our little bubble has moved on.
No, that's
a great way to put it. Grey's Anatomy of horror.
That makes perfect
Grey's
sense.
Anatomy is still on. Why is that show still on?
I don't know.
It just keeps trucking.
Yeah.
Maybe they're waiting for the Fear the Walking Dead crossover with Grey's Anatomy.
Fear the Grey's Anatomy?
All I'm saying is spin-off potential upon spin-off potential. And, Scott, all those, there's like 100 episodes. Just whenever you're ready, they're waiting for you. So
perfect. Nothing like homework that I'm completely disinterested in. I will get right on it.
Oh man. Well, as we move on from Fear the Walking Dead, I know we've gone around the circle a couple of times. Is there anything else you gentlemen would like to give a shout out to that you've enjoyed recently?
It's a circle now?
Well, triangle, three-sided square. I mean, however you view it.
Isosceles. I just like saying isosceles.
Ooh, the word of the
we
day.
Don't say it enough. It's just a nice sounding word. Isosceles.
It does kind of roll off the tongue. Oh, I will
sounds
say,
smart.
I guess I'll piggyback on my fear comment, completely unrelated, but Bruce Campbell is in a Hallmark movie this year, and I did get a chance to watch it, and it is a tearjerker, and very interesting to see Bruce, groovy Bruce in a Hallmark movie, but he did a really good job.
Isn't it called One Christmas Night?
One December Night with Pete Gallagher. It's see, the great thing is it's Bruce and Peter. They were like kind of the Simon and Garfunkel of like country rock music like 30 years ago, but then there was an argument between them and they've broken up, and 10 years have gone by, and now they have to reunite for one more concert in December. Can they do it? And in the process of that, their two children fall in love while they're trying to get their dads to reunite. So it's a good double feature with Evil Dead.
Absolutely.
Or if you want to do the double feature of like Hallmark-esque Christmas movies that star people who have prominent horror roles. This isn't Hallmark, but Netflix, of course, has gotten into the goofy, Christmas game. And A Castle for Christmas stars Brooke Shields and a one Mr. Cary Elwes, who, is kind of all over the place, but, horror fans know from the Saw franchise. I invite you to watch this to see Cary Elwes struggle with a Scottish accent.
Oh, he's doing Scottish?
Oh, okay. If you want to call it that.
Well, now you have my attention.
I really want to preface this. Like, I absolutely adore Cary Elwes. He is amazing. I love him in Saw. I love him in Princess Bride. Sure. I love him in Robin Hood Men in Tights. Like, I love him. Hell, I love his recurring character on Psych. But man, I don't know why. Like, he's Welsh. They should have just had Brooke Shields trying to buy the premise is she is a romance author going through a rough patch. So she goes to her dad was Scottish. So she goes back to her hometown in Scotland, finds that they are selling the castle where that was like in the village where her dad lived. And the Duke is this very kind of taciturn, grumpy fellow. Played by Cary Elwes. You'll know how this is going to pan out very quickly, but
I don't. I'm like on the edge of my seat.
It's something else. It is something. Like,
I'm into speculative castle prices.
I also need to preface it by saying, like, I'm not as immersed as, like, say, Derek might be in the Hallmark Christmas movies. So this may still be new to me in terms of just like how over the top cheesy these things are. But yeah, it's something to behold. I have a bit of a Scottish accent. I have a bit of a Brooke Shields allergy though. So that one could be hard to take, but I get the appeal of those movies 100%. Oh, here's one that I also just watched recently, and it's one I had not seen since it came out in the theaters, and that is Naked Lunch.
Oh,
and the David Cronenberg, yes, quote unquote adaptation of the William S. Burroughs book. Wow, what a difference 30 years makes in perspective. I had no fucking idea what that movie was about when I saw it at the age of 21. And now 51, and you see this junkie who can't write, and you go, oh, okay.
Oh, man.
Literally, it's the only thing I think of when I think of Naked Lunch. And Scott, sent you this GIF via this meme via Twitter. It's the scene in The Simpsons where they get like this fake ID, and so they go to see an R-rated movie, which turns out to be Naked Lunch. And as they're walking out, Nelson's just like, "I can think of at least two things wrong with that title."
Oh my gosh! Well, it sounds like maybe a good double feature with Existence.
You know what? I've never seen Existence or Existence.
Yeah, are we saying Existence?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was. And then how do I do like the capital X and the lowercase e? How do I pronounce that?
You have to cross them over over your head, your hands over your head. When you say
okay.
You have to do that. Yeah. Existence. See, I just did it.
And you have to flip your eyelids up while you're saying it.
It doesn't hurt. But yeah, it's a very funny picture, I think. And the older I get too, the more I see Cronenberg's humor when he does use it, which can be sparingly. But Naked Lunch, I thought was very funny. And it's, for those who aren't familiar, it's allegedly based on a book by famous beat poet and author William S. Burroughs, who was just as famous for being a junkie as an author. It was kind of in that time, and he had a novel called Naked Lunch. And David Cronenberg said, "Well, I'm going to film that novel." And everyone said, "You can't film that novel." And he went ahead and did his vision of it, and it's he boils it down to a story of a man with a horrible addiction to bug spray, who through this addiction ends up working and traveling to a place called Interzone, which is where all the writers hang out. And it has a very strong as well. How would I even put this? I would say it has a definite homoerotic text to it. Interzone. Bill Lee, the character played by Peter Weller, who is the substitute for William S. Burroughs. His sexuality is constantly called into question when he's in Interzone, until he himself faces that truth. It's a very interesting movie. I think it plays like a kind of a portrait of William S. Burroughs in a neo-noir, but and it's a comedy. That's kind of how I see it now.
It's amazing looking at Cronenberg's body of work, and of course in the horror circle, we just we think of all the stuff that he did with that, but it's even that stuff. There's so much going on there, and then like what he did in the later years with A History of Violence and Eastern Promises, and it's just amazing to think of how much he really dabbles in, and like you mentioned, it might warrant even more reevaluation than most filmmakers. So I've never seen Naked Lunch, but now I'm also adding that to my homework.
Oh, you definitely should. And there is a moment. It's very, Cronenbergian in terms of the typewriters are actually their own entity. They're a beetle. They're a beetle that live on the black meat of centipedes. And well, you'll see. It's a to-do. It is a to-do, but it's a very entertaining movie, and he kind of he plays it out like it is a thriller. But like I said, as I'm watching it this time, well, it's very clearly a guy who's hooked on this bug juice that he uses in his exterminator job, and he's going on some like heavy duty trips. Right, it's quite clear that this is what's happening, but the characters are so interesting, and just the way that Cronenberg sets everything in motion. It's really I thought it was quite a pip this time around watching it.
I've always been a little wary about seeing that, just because I remember I read the novel Naked Lunch in college, and I capital H hated it. Like, I just did not understand what the hell I was supposed to be getting out of this book. And it was part of a beat class, so I knew, like, there's a lot of, like, a lot of abstract and surrealist kind of thinking in there, but like this was just, I just didn't get it at all.
Sure.
So I didn't see myself watching that on screen and going like, yes, this I 100% get. But it sounds like it's Cronenberg taking some of those concepts and turning it into his own thing a bit, which, and also maybe that plus 20 years additional experience in my life, maybe that will give me something of a,
well, that's just it. Please go and watch it again, because I'm quite curious to see if that change in time.
Well, I've never seen the movie.
Oh, okay. But it's just even knowing his work and coming at it as from an older perspective. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then reread the book too, if you're really feeling ambitious.
It's like, I remember reading the book, Bob Dylan's novel, Tarantula. Have you guys ever read that?
No.
No.
It's kind of like a Fiona Apple album title for 149 pages.
Yeah.
That's like, kind of how it reads.
Most beat poetry and novels are just planted firmly in their own asses, so I have a hard time really kind of vibing with it. So yeah, but I don't know, the way you're describing Naked Lunch, and it is Cronenberg, so I do think it maybe time to give it its fair shake.
Great performances: Peter Weller, Judy Davis in dual roles, Ian Holm in a sizable part, which is always nice to see. Julian Sands.
Oh wow!
And a couple other familiar Cronenberg cronies that you've seen from other. Oh, Roy Scheider. How could I forget Roy Scheider?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
that's a great cast.
It's, you know what? It's certainly not the book. It's not the book at all. But geez, I dare say it's a fun movie. I don't know. I just kind of sit back and got a kick out of it this time, with kind of all that pretension wiped away from it. It's funny. I just think it's funny.
And Cronenberg will be stepping back behind the camera for Crimes of the Future in 2022. So excited to see what he brings to the table in his next movie, and that he's still making movies all these years later.
He's the GOAT.
And let's get Cronenbergian as the word of the year. I know they just announced like what the word of the year was. I think it was like alley ship. Like, let's make Cronenbergian the word of the year. I think that should be a new mission for 2022.
I think we're probably a little late in the game for that. I think maybe if we had rallied for that in 86 or 88,
So we're not pushing for Three Horsemen.
Oh no, we're pushing for Three Horsemen. We're just not pushing
all one word.
Yeah.
And with that, I think from Censor to Naked Lunch and beyond, and the Three Horsemen are going to sign off as another episode of Corpse Club comes to an end. We want to thank Bryan, our engineer, for helping us out every episode. And as always,
sorry if I could just stop you for a second. We should ride off, right?
Oh, right. Yes.
Am I signing off with my hoof? What am I signing off with? Okay, carry on.
As we ride off into the sunset after this episode, we want to thank our listeners, including those of you who have signed up for Corpse Club membership. Make sure to visit corpseclub.com to check out our latest episode. You can also sign up to become a member, which will give you access to shirts. It gets you access to a really cool membership card and we also have I was counting this recently, more than 20 audio commentaries for Corpse Club members on a wide range of horror films, including Christmas Evil and Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. So yeah,
I still love the only Silent Night, Deadly Night movie I've ever seen is Part 2, and it was for that recording.
Yeah,
like I've never seen any of them except for that context.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and thankfully it's one of those sequels that shows you most of the first movie in the actual sequel. So it's a nice refresher. So yeah, go and join the Corpse Club and listen to both Bryan and I watched that one for the first time as we recorded that commentary. So it's an adventure. And of course, Christmas Evil is always fun. And I believe it's Bryan and Scott on that one. So in addition to that, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Every rating and review really does help. You can also find us on Google Play, SoundCloud, and all of your favorite podcast providers. If you want to get in touch, you can reach us anytime at contact@corpseclub.com or on Twitter @DailyDeadNews or @CorpseClub and on Instagram and Facebook under Corpse Club. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, stay scary.